And finally, our players are locked and loaded. Kosiak 2400 on the left side of your screen, Tomahawk UK on the right, and we're going to see the teams displayed for one last time inside the Warsaw Regional Championships. These are the teams that have brought them into this grand final. These are the teams that have been their lifeblood throughout the entire competition, that have brought them so much success. And immediately, we can see some of these players' individual flair on either of these rosters. First of all, Victini from Kosiak has been his signature pick throughout this entire day. Able to spam out those V-creates so quickly with the quick attack buff. It has just been a monster to deal with. And honestly, not many professional players have had the opportunity to practice against Victini too much. Tomahawk UK, on the other hand, is obviously a little bit worried about ghost types, given that he's brought 2 normal type Pokemon, but that makes a lot of sense considering his other 4 Pokemon, Frostlass, Medicham, Swampert, and Galarian Stunfisk, don't really have great matchups against Trevenant, which is the premier ghost type inside of the Great League meta right now. So being able to cover for those weaknesses kind of scares Kosiak away from even potentially running that Trevenant, because you're going to get completely walled if you put it into some of those champions such as the Lickitung or the Knocked Owl. They're just one of those things for them to watch out for. But of course, at the end of the day, Altaria also looks pretty solid from the side of Kosiak. Altaria obviously can really win against Swampert, can do pretty good against Lickitung, even though the matchup's not completely favored given Altaria's low bulk. But it also does pretty solidly into Medicham, can just spam out those Sky attacks, Knocked Owl as well, just over spams, and can do a lot of Dragon Breath damage over time at the end of the day. Some things I'd probably be worried about if I'm on the side of Kosiak is the safe swap situation. As you know, you could bring in Azumarill as a safe swap, but Azumarill is not really going to do that great against some Pokemon such as Lickitung, which is most likely going to be Tomahawk's safe swap. Lickitung obviously can throw out those Power Whips that are going to do extra damage to the Azumarill, and as we see now, we're going to be hopping in the game one. Let's see what these players have opted to choose for their first game. And immediately, great lead for Kosiak, Obstagoon into the Lickitung, an immediate switch into the Azumarill and Knocked Owl on the side of Tomahawk UK. Of course, Azumarill has a lot more bulk than Knocked Owl and will be able to throw out these super effective Ice Beams over time. Tomahawk actually opts for the Shadow Ball here, even though it is a little bit less energy per damage efficient than the Sky attack. Maybe has a little bit of a plan here. There could be a Search and Ivy breakpoint where 3 of them can take out the Azumarill. We're going to see Kosiak now firing off his Ice Beam. It's going to take out quite a bit of the Knocked Owl, so the next one will certainly be lethal. Let's see how these players opt to play this next segment of the game. Sky attack in from Tomahawk UK, and Kosiak knows that this is not going to KO him, so he's going to let it go through, maybe opt to farm up a little bit more, knowing that Knocked Owl is just 2 wing attacks away. Gonna slightly undercharge this Ice Beam, but we all know this is more than enough to KO. Now, how will Tomahawk respond to this? Most likely with the Lickitung, as he can come in and basically lick down, not too afraid of any of those charge moves, obviously, because he does have that bulk of the Lickitung. Ice Beam can come through, but opts to charge up a little bit more, and actually is going to get stopped by Tomahawk, throwing the Body Slam to prevent the Play Rough from coming out. Kosiak, happy to let it go, already knowing that he has 1 switch advantage and perfect alignment. Now he's got the Obstagoon onto the Lickitung and the Altaria onto the Medicham. Let's see how he opts to play this. Goes for the Moonboss? No, goes for the Sky attack first, but is met with the Medicham's Ice Punch. Must shield this up. It would probably do about 60% damage. Let's see, if he continues to build, he does build up to the Moonblast. Decides just to throw the Sky attack on good move alignment. Is able to get this one through. Medicham needs to shield this one up, obviously, because it would be knocking a couple of Medichams out from that range. And here we go. It is Tomahawk throwing that Ice Punch right before Kosiak is able to reach that second Sky attack. It is going to go shielded, and let's take a look. Can this Altaria win this matchup still? Sky attack is at the ready, and it's going to actually not throw it yet. Medicham gets that Ice Punch, this is not going to be lethal. So Kosiak doesn't really need to worry, knows that he can still throw out this Sky Attack and be just fine, but no Ops could go for the farm down, extremely aggressive, swap in from the Lickitung to catch the Sky Attack, hoping to save that Medicham to deal with the Obstagoon in the back. Now, it's up to Kosiak to take out this Lickitung, but it's going to be doing triple, effective, just regular effective moves against the Lickitung while taking triple resisted licks from the Lickitung. Lickitung obviously goes for the body slam. It doesn't do too much damage to that Obstagoon. Obstagoon's going to continue to farm up, ready to throw that cross chop. Here we go. Is he going to opt to shield it? No, he doesn't. This will be lethal to the Lickitung. We're very close to lethal. One more counter, and Obstagoon is now taking out that Lickitung. Does Azumarill have enough juice in it to... Oh, no. Does Medicham have enough in it to take out the Obstagoon? Apparently not. And Tomahawk UK is going to go down with a shield in the first battle here. And really, Kosiak had that battle from start to finish, knew exactly what his win condition was. Getting that alignment, throwing out a heart to his family, his friends watching out there. They must be so excited for him. Two more games to go before he can become Warsaw's regional champion. But of course, that's if Tomahawk doesn't have anything to say about it. So let's take a look now if they decide to change up these teams, because of course Kosiak did get that correct lead. Obstagoon into Lickitung is certainly a great matchup. So let's see if he can kind of replicate that success here, of course. Registeel might be quite an interesting option actually for Kosiak to run. Obviously, Registeel's not going to do too great against the Galarian Stunfisk or the Swampert. It essentially gets completely walled. But actually can flip matchups against the Medicham, which is considered a bad matchup for most of the time. Medicham actually can only throw resisted moves onto Registeel. Of course, the Ice Punch and Psychic are both resisted, even though the counters are super effective. It's not too threatening to the very bulky Registeel, and with 2 Zap Cannons, you can actually win that matchup. So maybe that looks good for a safe swap. It will obviously wall this Lickitung, wall the Noctowl, and do very, very good against the Frostlass as well because that Ice-type moves are resisted. So just maybe things to think about if you're Kosiak. I don't think the Obstagoon is necessarily the play here because if you are to bring Obstagoon, there's always that risk that it kind of gets a line onto the Medicham. And of course, Medicham putting out those double super effective counters onto it is just not really ideal for the most part. Altaria as well looked good in that game, but now maybe that's an indication towards Tomahawk that Frostlass needs to come, or Galarian Stunfisk needs to come as very, very solid Altaria answers. I kind of like the core that Kosiak has built there because, of course, Obstagoon covers for Frostlass and it covers for the Galarian Stunfisk, both things that the Altaria are weak to. Let's see, we're going to go into game number 2 and see if my predictions were correct, and we are going to see that Kosiak has brought that Altaria, and exactly, that Altaria is so weak to the Frostlass, but again, he has these 2 options in the back to deal with it. Tomahawk clearly recognizing that the Altaria was going to come in this game and brings the right counter to that. Okay, Tomahawk goes straight for the Shadow Ball. No use in baiting, knowing that Kosiak is certainly not going to shield this move, knowing that Shadow Ball is just simply not lethal here. Kosiak continues to farm up, throws out the Play Rough. Again, even though Ice Beam is slightly cheaper, there's no real reason to bait because it doesn't offer you a significant advantage. Now here, Tomahawk shielded, but again, there's just not really a huge value in getting that 1 bubble advantage. Now, Shadow Ball comes through from Tomahawk. Again, getting straight to business, no baiting here, and Kosiak knows that he's getting a little bit low, and if he wants to flip this switch and ensure that the Frostlass isn't a problem for his Altaria later in the game, he's got to get this down. So here we go, Noctowl comes in, Ice Beam at the ready, and again, we've already seen how much damage this does, about 35% to the Noctowl, not too threatening, but a couple of them will begin to add up, and here we go, Azumarill goes for the next Ice Beam, can he reach it? No, Shadow Ball denies it from the side of Tomahawk, and this will be close to lethal for the Azumarill, if not completely lethal. And no, he hangs on with a thread. That's why IVs matter as this next Ice Beam comes through. Will Tomahawk respect it? No, he does not. Knows that he'll cling on with just a bit of health. Can they farm him down? Yes, he can. Altaria comes in. Now Altaria will be met with the Frostlass. This is a very, very difficult matchup. Altaria doing double super effective Powder Snows. Avalanche is going to come in soon. farms up perfectly and throws the avalanche right before Altaria reaches that first sky attack. Beautiful move timing here from Tomahawk, and is going to get shielded by the Altaria. Altaria now looking for more of a farm down, but no! The avalanche actually comes through. Kosiak's win condition there was just a farm down completely onto that Frost Blast, and recognizing that he can't means that this match is already lost. Obstagoon now into the Medicham. You see the sigh of defeat from Kosiak 2400. This is a player who clearly wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's clearly not too happy with this matchup. Undercharges the Night Slash, knows the writing is already on the wall, and must reset his mindset before the next game begins. Laughs at the attack rose sharply, comes basically when he didn't really need it here, and Tomahawk is now back in the game 1-1 with that beautiful lead call. Bringing that Frost Blast into the Altaria is exactly the momentum that Tomahawk needs to start winning this match. Of course, now if you're Kosiak, you might be thinking about running that Victini, because we know Victini has that great matchup with the fire into ice. Of course, you do got to be careful of those Shadow Balls, but Quick Attack and V-Crate absolutely outpaced that Frost Blast. So just a couple of things to consider. Of course, if you look at the Obstagoon, it's something he's brought in both games already alongside the Altaria. Again, those two Pokemon make a really solid core, but only when you get the correct alignment. So at the extent that this alignment has been a little bit rocked by the new introduction of Frostlass from Tomahawk inside of Game 2, again, just more things for Kosiak to worry about. We're going to take a look at our teams again on the board just so you guys have a quick refresher on what has worked and what hasn't. Of course, we still haven't seen Kosiak run the Registeel, the Trevenant, or even the Victini. It just seems like he's pretty comfortable with these three so far. Tomahawk, of course, has shown us the Noctowl both games, has shown us the Medicham both games, the Lickitung ones, and also the Frostlass ones. So, not too keen on running those two ground types, actually. And if you're Kosiak, maybe you're like, okay, he doesn't seem too happy to run the Swampert or the G-Fisk, so we might be able to bring in the Registeel here pretty safely into all those other matchups. It does a really good job at just winning those neutral matchups given the extended bulk of that Pokemon, and let's see if that is a decision that Kosiak has decided to make here inside of game number 3 up against Tomahawk UK. Here we go, there's the Victini, and looks like it was not the right call at this point in time. Victini comes into the Swampert. Swampert is farming up to the Earthquake to throw into that Azumarill. Of course, this Shadow Swampert is going to be doing huge damage, and it's going to be winning CMP against the Azumarill as well here. Let's see if Kosiak respects it. He does, and Tomahawk is going to lose all that energy there as he wasn't really keen on baiting. Great catch onto the Medicham, but unfortunately for Tomahawk, it was a Play Rough, not an Ice Beam. That is really gonna hurt. 50% of the Medicham up into smoke, and let's see if he decides to keep this matchup or just completely give up the Medicham. He reaches the Psychic, and wow, Kosiak actually happy to let that move through instead of throwing his Play Rough. And let's see, Psychic does come through onto the Azumarill. He will farm up a little bit more and actually go for the Ice Beam here. Now, does Tomahawk respect this? Because if he does and shields, it is a little bit of a bait, as this doesn't KO him, and he does shield. That may cost him a little bit at the end of the day, as now Kosiak will reach this Play Rough before that Psychic. These are just the little decisions that make a big difference. He will throw the Ice Beam again, though, as this should be lethal. Tomahawk must respect this. He does want that alignment of his Swampert onto the Victini. If he wants to win this game, Psychic now can come through from the side of Tomahawk, but he continues to farm up, waits for the last second, and wins CMP there onto the Azumarill, I believe. Ice Punch will be lethal to this. Oh my goodness, this is again why IVs matter. Noctowl comes in, and an Ice Beam is ready to face the Owl. Here we go. No shields remaining for the side of Tomahawk. He's got to be really careful now, as Victini is such a threat when shields are down. V-Create can come through, not to knock out this Noctowl, but throws it on CMP. Just as he reaches the Sky Attack, V-Create will be knocking out the Noctowl. And now we'll see how he decides to deal with this Swampert in the back, which is looking to be like such a problem for the Victini. Swampert, he's now waiting the switch clock. Probably wants to use that Medicham at some point as a third shield. Hydro Cannon goes out from the Swampert. Again, he knows that he will win CMP versus this Victini. Victini does shield it though, knowing that if he shields this and gets to another move, he will be winning this game. So Psychic comes out from Kosiak. No shields remaining from Tomahawk. His Swampert will almost certainly be going down to this Psychic and taking us to game number 4. Medicham can certainly take this Victini out here, but there's nothing for the Obstagoon in the back. If you're Kosiak, maybe you want to keep this matchup necessarily a little bit less close, because he was so close to not having to show that Obstagoon off. And now if you're Tomahawk, you're like, okay, Kosiak has brought Obstagoon for the last 3 games, and maybe this is something I really need to work on getting my alignment for, because if you're a Tomahawk, you really want that Medicham to be on top of that Obstagoon, doing those double super effective counters, and that will certainly just give you the match every single time you're able to get it right. But that's been very, very difficult for him. We've seen Kosiak bring the Obstagoon every game. We've seen Tomahawk bring the Medicham every game. But these Pokemon rarely interact with each other, which has been really, really brilliant from the side of Kosiak, ensuring that the draft is going in his favor. And again, if this was in his thoughts just to bring the Obstagoon in the lead every single time, that makes a lot of sense, because again, Medicham doesn't really lead too often. Is usually something that you see in the back. So again, these are just the mind games that these players are playing with each other now. Kosiak looks into the crowd, is just deep in thought about what he will bring in this last game. Maybe this is the point where you need to start switching your Pokemon up and kind of going for something a little less expected to finish off the game and close at a 3-1. Trevenant, of course, we talked about Trevenant being really, really good into everything on Tomahawk's team, except for the Lickitung and Noctowl. But Lickitung and Noctowl have been seen in a couple of these games, so that's something Kosiak probably doesn't really want. And again, fighting for switch advantage has been the theme of all 3 of our games so far. When you are able to win that switch advantage, you're able to get the correct alignment, which has been mostly favorable in Kosiak's side for the most part. Now, if you're Tomahawk, you got to think about what your win conditions are here. You need to maybe pull out some surprises as well, and let's see if the Swampert continues to get into the game. Of course, we saw that onto the Victini previously, so maybe he wants to repeat that success in game number 4. Lickitung into Obstagoon, another terrible lead for Tomahawk. We saw this in the first game, and that didn't go in his favor, so probably not too happy with what he's seeing right here. Swampert now did come back again, just preparing for that Victini in the case that Kosiak does want to get a little bit wild on his end. Of course, Swampert now goes for the bait. Does Kosiak decide to call it? He doesn't call it, and that's going to be a Hydro Cannon bait. Beautifully done by Tomahawk UK. And again, he identifies that last time he threw that Earthquake, it was shielded immediately by Kosiak. So he recognized that and goes for the Hydro Cannon this time. Very nice play. Of course, if you're Kosiak, you don't want to invest 2 shields on this matchup necessarily, so you're going to have to let that Earthquake go no matter what. Ice Beam now coming in from Kosiak. This is a little bit of a bait as well, because that Ice Beam wouldn't knock out the Swampert from this range. Tomahawk is still going to respect it, of course. Here comes another Ice Beam. Does he respect it again? He does. Definitely wants to keep this Swampert alive, it looks like. And if he reaches the Hydro Cannon, this should be lethal to the Azumarill. Doesn't throw it immediately, though. Knows that Kosiak is still a couple bubbles off that Ice Beam. Throws it maybe a little bit early, but it's still going to be enough to knock him out at this point. Now, how is Kosiak going to respond to this Swampert? Because, of course, his last 2 Pokemon aren't really great against Swampert. They don't have too dominating of matchups. Victini certainly has a severely losing one, so actually going to let this Hydro Cannon go through. Does Kosiak opt to just try to farm him down? Let's see if he makes it. No, opts to not. Could farm up a little bit more, but at this stage, you're probably not wanting to risk it all on a couple of counters. So here we go. Night Slash comes through. Victini comes into the Medicham, immediate switch out into Lickitung, and Kosiak is not going to like this. Lickitung has so much bulk. You don't want to throw the V-Create either, because that's going to debuff you. Builds up to 2. Let's see if he gets it off. Number 1 goes through, charging up on the Lickitung. How much damage does this do? It's not a matchup I can say I've seen many times. Boom, there's 1, and oh my goodness, can this Body Slam take out the Victini? It absolutely will. So the shield comes out from Kosiak. Will this next V-Create be enough? I think it will be just enough. And if he can do that, this Medicham is the only thing standing in his way of a Warsaw Regional Championships. Let's see. Boom, there it is. V-Create onto the Lickitung, and the Lickitung falls. Medicham comes in. It's just too healthy, unfortunately. I don't think this V-Create is going to be enough, and Obstagoon almost certainly will lose to the Medicham as well. Kosiak has debuffed himself so many times that this one won't even debuff him anymore, as the limit is 4. Here we go. Obstagoon comes in, just going to get farmed down from Tomahawk, and looks like he is going to take this one to a game number 5 up against Kosiak. Beautiful plays from Tomahawk despite a really rough lead, just knowing exactly what he needed to do at the end there. Tanked those V-Creates on Lickitung like an absolute boss and came in with the Medicham to finish things off here. Kosiak nods to the opponent. He knows this one was well played, and we can see how tense both players are here, just taking deep breaths, waiting for the final moments of this match. One game will decide it all. Who gets a paid trip to Japan in the summer 2023? It all comes down to it. These players are already locked in for Worlds, but hey, who doesn't want that free trip? Let's take a look at our teams for one last time. Does Kosiak switch it up? Does he try to play a little bit unpredictably, because he has brought this Obstagoon every single time, and Tomahawk knows it. We've seen his Medicham every single time. So switching up at the last moment here, maybe taking out that Obstagoon in lieu of another Pokemon would make a little bit of sense. But of course, maybe Tomahawk's like, no, 4 times in a row is way too silly. There's no way he brings it again. So then when Kosiak actually brings it out, it is a little bit surprising to him. So we'll just have to see. Again, these mind games are really what will be preying on both of these players' inner machinations at the end of this last set. Of course, you don't want to overthink it, but you also don't want to second guess yourself. And those are all the dangers of playing these high stakes tournaments. Of course, both very, very experienced battlers. We're just going to have to see what they decide to play in this final game. I'm still curious if Kosiak decides to bring out some of those Pokemon that he hasn't before. But looking at his screen right here on the bottom, we can already kind of see what he's decided. And I can tell you that the Obstagoon is certainly coming in our final game. Tomahawk, let's see if he will be ready for that, of course. Lots of great answers to the Obstagoon, of course. Noctowl is generally a fighter answer. We consider Obstagoon a fighter, but he doesn't actually take super effective from those wing attacks or sky attacks, so it's actually not too bad of a matchup. Let's see what Tomahawk is opting for. It looks like he's just thinking over it one last time before locking in these Pokemon. Of course, you can't really blame him for that. So much on the line here, really, and both these players want to be bringing it home for themselves, their teams, their factions, their friends and family, probably all watching from the crowds above. One last deep breath from Tomahawk before they decide to lock these last picks in. If this next lead isn't called correctly, that could throw the entire set, the game, just the entire series, the entire tournament comes down to just getting this last lead right. How well can you read the opponents? We will just have to see in a couple of moments from now. Lickitung in the lead hasn't done too great for Tomahawk in the past couple games, so maybe these are some things that he needs to reconsider in his strategy, because it just hasn't been doing too great against the Obstagoon, which we have seen coming out from Kosiak every single game. Probably needs to change these things up. We still haven't seen him bring out the Galarian Stunfisk, of course, as he knows that's not good against Obstagoon. Here we go, the final read of these two players. The poses all lined up. Let's take a look. Altaria in the Frostlass. It looks like Tomahawk has gotten the read on his opponent. Kosiak not too happy with this. Immediately switches out into the Victini. Let's see. Swampert into the Victini. That is going to be an absolutely fantastic answer. Let's see if the Psychic decides to go through. Farming up our both sides. Here we go. Hydro Cannon down from the Tomahawk. Shield immediately from Kosiak. Of course, this would knock out 3 Victinis. So here we go. Does he go for the Psychic or the V-Create? He goes for the V-Create bait. Of course, the Psychic will KO Tomahawk from here, but he's going to be shielding it up to prevent that possibility. Boom, there's the V-Create, debuffing Kosiak by 2. Here's another V-Create. Does the Tomahawk respect it? Yes, he does. There's the shield. Kosiak's V-Create goes through, debuffed 4 times is now this Victini. Now, can this Swampert just farm all the way down? He can. but opts to throw the Hydro Cannon. Probably wants to preserve a little bit of health on his Swampert. Here we go. Hydro Cannon comes through. Kosiak loses switch, but still has that shield advantage. Altaria, can it make it to this Swampert before he reaches 2 Hydro Cannons? I don't think so. Here we go. Hydro Cannons banked onto the Swampert, and this switch out may be costly. Obstagoon now aligned onto the Frost Slash. This is exactly what the Tomahawk doesn't want to see. Night Slash, not going to be lethal to the Frost Slash, but will be getting it pretty low. Here we go. There it is. Avalanche now can come out from the Tomahawk. Let's see if this is enough to knock out the Obstagoon. I don't think so. So Kosiak is going to let it through. Is Tomahawk able to reach another Avalanche is the question. Yes, he does. Who wins CMP? It is going to be the Avalanche from the Frost Slash winning CMP over the Obstagoon's Night Slash. Kosiak opts to let it go. Let's see what his play is now. It's all up to Altaria. Altaria against the world. There goes Frost Slash. Sky Attack banked. 1 versus 2. Can he get this done? Tomahawk has the Meta Champion back. Probably isn't too happy with that. Hydro Cannon number 1 coming through. Does Kosiak respect it? He does not. It's going to go through. Does about 20% of damage to the Altaria. Oh my goodness, it's a Medicham. Sky Attack number 1 coming through. Kosiak takes a deep breath. Is this going to be enough? 1 Sky Attack through. 50% of the health on the Medicham. Boom, there it is. Here we go. One more. There it is. Sky Attack coming through onto the Medicham. Does the Tomahawk have enough juice left in him to finish off this game? I don't think so. The Swampert is just too low. Sky Attack gets the Medicham down. Hydro Cannon from the Swampert isn't enough to KO. He doesn't throw it. Kosiak throws down the headphones. It's game over. He runs off the stage, and that is a well-played game. He can't contain his excitement, and that is understandable. His entire faction surrounds him in applause, in congratulations. This is your Warsaw Regional Championship winner. And what an absolute brilliant play from him, just being thrown above the spectators as he deserves. Victini came in those last 3 games and it did him so much good. Who would have thought that a Victini could take 2 shields from a Swampert? Not me, but now we all know that matchup a little bit better. This is Warsaw Regional Championships. I've been your host, Nighttime Clasher, and it's been such a pleasure to cast this for you today. And with that, I'll be signing off.